Okay, everybody have a sheet? Everybody good? Okay. Well, welcome everyone. So my name is Kevin Hunter-Reiner, and I've been giving talks like this for 20 years, and I can read minds because the first question most people are thinking is like, how old are you? So I'm 48 years old. Luckily, I golf a lot, and I eat well, and I'm able to stay young and healthy looking. So part of me, when I started doing golf course marketing for courses back in 1998, they didn't think anything of it because I was a computer guy. So young people are good with computers, right? So they trusted me then. The last 5 years, when I've been basically driving around the state trying to save golf courses, I usually lead off with how old I am because most people think I'm like 20. So I'll start off that way. So Kevin Hunter-Reiner, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I moved up to Minnesota in 1994, got hooked on golf, started a website, TwinCitiesGolf.com, because it was right when the internet was coming out, and I set up a website so that people could find courses, play in fun weekly tournaments, and find special offers. So luckily I caught the internet at the right time, got that set up. I started helping golf courses build websites back in 1998. So if you owned a golf course in 1998, I probably knocked on your door and said, would you like me to help you build a website? Start sending out email marketing, at a time when like 1 out of 10 people had email. And then we all went AOL, we all went offline for a couple of years, dial-up. And then, so I've been through the trends. So from 1998 till about 2004, I built websites, I helped with email marketing. I was more of a marketing consultant for courses. To date, I've worked with close to almost 200 different golf courses throughout Minnesota, western Wisconsin. I travel around the country and give talks at national conferences about basically what does the next generation of golf courses look like. Because sadly, a lot of courses are in the same situation as these small town courses. They were built 20 years ago. They did pretty well early. Once 2009 hit, things got really tight. And so many of them now are 20, 25 years old. They've got aging infrastructure. They're going to need some capital improvements. The owners are flat out panicking. I'm barely breaking even. I've got $1 million irrigation system coming up in 5 years. I don't know what I'm going to do. So what I've done over the past 4 or 5 years is I've spent the majority of my effort assembling a team, guys like Mike and Dan and Brooks, a 30-plus year guy, and we basically go around and consult courses. It's like, what situation are you in? Where do you need help? You need help on the agricultural side. You need help on the machinery side. You need help on the marketing side. You need help on the finance side. So what we do is, what we realized really quickly is most golf courses were built by farmers, and they were run kind of as just open the door, hope business comes in, and that actually worked. It worked from like 1960 up until about 2007. They opened their door, turned on the lights, people came in. So where we're at now, and some of the recent, literally last week I was in St. Paul courthouse. I'm working with Ramsey County and St. Paul and Minneapolis. We're actually trying to figure out how to have a Minneapolis golf course be profitable. Imagine that. Now there it's a little bit easier. Mike, what are we looking at with Minneapolis? A $500,000 turnaround in 1 year?
Yep.
They lost $500,000 last year. This year they're going to break even with maybe, 5-6 hours of help.
That's about it.
So those courses, those are a little bit easier to turn around quicker, but they have bigger challenges. So what I enjoy most now is going to little towns like Litchfield and Montgomery and northern Minnesota, because what I've realized is that the courses these days that are doing the best are the ones that are in communities where people care about the course and where they view the course as a place that they can hang out with their family, their friends. They can maybe entertain some business clients. But if you lived in the cities, you would be very optimistic about the future of golf. Now, luckily, that's extending now. How far is Montgomery from the cities? An hour?
About an hour, yeah.
So what's happening these last couple of years is if your course is within an hour of Minneapolis, St. Paul, the future is super bright, super quick. The way that we're helping save these more outskirt courses is not just by bringing in a team that can help save money on chemicals, that can co-op with other local courses and do stuff like share equipment, maybe share a superintendent. There's lots of ways. Brooks' expertise is how do we save money, as importantly as make more money, how do we actually save money so that we're profitable and long-term solvent. Okay? So what I've done, who I brought with me here today, I'll do the introductions. This is Brooks, and I'll have him talk, but I'll toot his horn first. If you own a golf course in the Twin Cities and you needed help with, hey, why are my greens dying? Why do I have those brown spots? You call Brooks. Right? If you're struggling how to set up a chemical budget, or your machines, how you want to know how to save money on mowers and stuff, you call Brooks. Right? If you want to know why do people drive like over an hour to play his course when it's the same price as the ones right next to it, it's because of the culture and the way that he's developed and trains his staff, so that when you go to his course, you feel like family. Right? So he built a course. He's been a manager. He's been a superintendent. How long ago did you buy timber?
6 seasons.
So he's a 6-year owner. He's my go-to guy. When I hear people in trouble that need help with that, I say, call Brooks. Right? We also brought Dan here. He's a 20-plus year, great guy, but more importantly, he's insurance and business operations, business development type guy for what insurance company? Progressive Insurance. Mike's not too long graduate from University of Minnesota, Carlson School of Finance. He's a numbers guy, like doesn't need a calculator and can figure out all those things. So whenever I have an idea, because I'm more of an idea guy, I show it to Mike and he tells me in about 8 seconds, nope, that's not going to make money, or yeah, that's a great idea. Let's tweak the pricing, let's tweak the terms, and he's got a pretty solid track record of helping make things turn out right. He looks at all the balance sheets, the financial stuff. So I like when him and Brooks get together because they can read all those reports. I just focus on making places more money. You guys have to track it and show profits. My goal is just to get people in the door. So before I do the introductions, the last 5 years I've basically spent doing 2 things. One, consulting courses. I've got right now, where are we at, Mike? How many courses are we working with on some type of consulting management level?
130.
About 130 different courses. So I focused that, and then I focused just on building up my own followers for Twin Cities Golf. We have 50,000 email subscribers. We have 15,000 social media followers. I mean, you can look at stats, and we get more interaction on our social media locally than Golf Digest gets on theirs nationally. So what our focus is helping courses build a community of loyal, happy people, training staff, and at the end of the year, having these guys tell us, great news, we made a couple $100,000. So, and that number it might sound like a stretch if any of you have looked at these books and stuff, but you know, how many of you know where Montgomery, Minnesota is? Like, all right, is that close to the Twin Cities? Is that like just around the corner? Okay. It's an hour. It's about an hour from the airport. But if you ask 1,000 people that live in Minneapolis, where's Montgomery? How many of them do you think would know where it is? Maybe one whose grandma lives there or something. So it's a tiny, small town. Great example, last year they were in a similar situation. We put out the word, we found a buyer. He bought it. For 30 years, the course never showed a profit. Last year, he made over $200K net. Right? His accountant, I was in his office, his accountant said, hey, you need to buy something. Like, we can't pay income tax on this much profit. Crushing it. So I lead off that way because I want you to know that it's possible. I also want you to know I've gone to courses that have said they're in trouble. I went out, toured the course, did a demographic study, came back in and said, you're screwed. You should just shut it down or sell it for houses. Your course is terrible. Your irrigation's, you got way too much competition. You're not different than any of the other 5 courses within 45 minutes of you. You got mold in your clubhouse. So having done some homework, I came down here in the spring. I had met with Ellery last year about this time when she was getting brought on board. We looked at the pricing structure. We put together a solid marketing plan. We did some promotion to the metro, and I work with the courses in Winona. So I work with Bridges and Westfield there. We work with the Red Wing courses, all of them, the Jewel, Red Wing. So we're very familiar. I personally feel that there's a lot of potential to drive metro area people from the metro, because for the last 10, 20 years we've been driving up to Brainerd, north, 2 hours of traffic, it's colder, it's $100 a round, and there's nothing else to do. How many of you have been to like up north, like Bowabic and stuff like that, right? Did I just nail it? Like terrible traffic, ugly scenery. You know, it's not, once you get there, it's nice, but driving up, you know, it's 35 is still under construction. In case you haven't been there in 7 years, it's still under construction, and it will be for the next 20 years. So that's me. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to have Brooks talk. Just give him a little bit of an overview. This is your first time on this property today, right?
Today was my first time.
Okay.
Very impressed with the golf course. Turf conditions really good. Kind of wish my course was, I'm getting there, but the course I purchased was in really rough shape and managed to turn it around, built the business up. Kevin's helped me out a great deal with the marketing, getting more people to come out and play. Background-wise for me, my education is in turf grass management. Was fortunate enough to build a couple golf courses around the metro area, Rum River Hills. I did a lot of the reconstruction work at Brookview and Gold Valley. The Albion Ridges out towards the Maple Lake Annandale area. So my expertise is that area. It's just growing good turf and getting course conditions to a level that people can really enjoy it and sustain that moving forward. So I was very impressed when I came down here to see what you guys have here. It's a beautiful golf course. Very impressed.
What about the equipment?
The equipment's all in great shape. Kind of wish I had some equipment as new as what was in the building over there, but yeah, everything thus far to me looks really good.
What about, I know you walked through the clubhouse, what about like building structure? Did you see any red flags?
No, I mean, I'm truly very impressed. It was much better than what I expected to find when I came down here, so.
Yeah, and what was really interesting is this course, the way I explained it to Brooks is, this course is kind of like the course he built in Annandale. So have any of you played Albion Ridges out in Annandale? Yeah. It's like, Brooks, this is Albion Ridges of the southeast. Like, it's great turf, it's open, we can open early, we can stay open late. The way, the time frame that most courses make all their profit is that 3 weeks, if they can get open 3 weeks earlier than everybody else, and if they can stay open 3 weeks later, you can make like $50,000 in those 4 or 5 week windows. So what do most courses do? They're like, oh, we're not going to open early because we don't have staff, or we don't want to take air, we don't want to blow the snow off of our greens or anything. Well, they don't spend $300 worth of effort to make $10,000. And they don't have the marketing reach to get people to drive. Like Jay, if this course was open 2 weeks before Minneapolis courses, would you come down here and play with your 48 friends?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good condition, right before this meeting.
Yeah. So that's our job. How would you describe this facility to some of the other operators and managers, like in the metro? More just like a perception-wise.
I like the efficiency of the way it's set up. Ours, when I purchased it, it wasn't, but now mine is set up similar, where one person on slow days can pretty much manage the whole thing. You can work the bar and the grill area, and you can check people in at the same time. You don't have the bar area and the grill area separate. All things that don't seem that big, but add a tremendous amount of cost to running a business this size. So just the basic setup, the parking lot, the flow coming in, I like the way it's set up. It's very good.
Okay. Well, let's get into the nuts and bolts. So lift up your sheet. Again, this is the part where, as I go through the next 5-10 minutes, you're going to have some questions. Do me a huge favor. Just when a question comes up in your head, just turn the sheet over and just make a quick note. I've got the next 10-15 minutes actually laid out, so that I'll probably end up answering your question if you just give it another couple of minutes. So just out of respect for your time, if you have your sheet in front of you, I'm going to hit on these topics. So to quickly summarize, what's saving other golf courses like this in other markets is most individuals are most people that don't have an expertise like Brooks, that have the confidence level, most individuals are nervous about the liability of trying to run a golf course all by themselves. I mean, guys like this, they sleep at the course. Like, I go to courses and you got a bed, they got a shower. There are times in the fall when staff gets thin, they just throw an air mattress and actually sleep on it. All right? So that's one way of doing it until, that's what you used to do, right? So the goal is, the big picture of what's saving these courses is I don't think in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, community courses like this, it's actually better to have 20, 25, 30 different shareholders that actually care about the place. Because how many, are you a golfer here? How many golfing buddies do you have? 20? 12?
Sure.
Okay. So what if 20 people have 20 golfing buddies and they've got a vested interest. That's 400 golfers. Do you know that if you go to Interlaken, Hazeltine, Minnetonka, do you know how many members they have that support the place? How many members does Hazeltine have? Does anybody know? 250. So now they're paying 10 grand a year each to support a fancy, expensive place like that. But what is shocking, when we do analytics of customer data, you only need 400 to 500 local people playing at a course 10 to 12 times in a year to actually keep the place afloat. If you're efficient with your expenditures, if you've got great efficient staff, if you have technology that helps you manage your tee sheet, your books, all that, if you use technology to make things more efficient, and you figure out ways like we have at some courses, and we also run some indoor golf simulator places. Mike, how much per hour does our staff make at Inside Edge? What's an average hourly rate?
About $22 an hour.
22 bucks. Our staff, just again, we don't pay them that much, but through bonuses, by profits bonuses, and through tips, we'll range between $22 and $27 an hour. So you can find some good talent, young, friendly, fun, if you're able to create a situation. Now, I'm not going to pay them a $22 an hour salary if they don't do anything. They get a base plus motivation profit based on course profitability or business profit. So all these things, we're just trying to bring some new age ways of managing people, you know, especially the younger generation. I have a 21-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter. My daughter, I could give her a project, if I could pay her by the hour and she'll be done in lickety-split. My son, by the time he was 17, I said, dude, I'm not paying you by the hour anymore. I'm paying you per project because I want you to do it efficiently. He's one of these guys, well, he could take 8 hours to do a 30-minute project, right? So you learn through, when we hire, we do personality profiles, we find people's strengths, we find their weaknesses, we do enough interviews, we do 2-week trials where they just come in and interact, and we find out real quick, are they going to be a good fit? And it's unbelievable what a difference that can make. So the big picture of what's saving courses is not when there's just one owner running the place trying to make it a go. It's when there's 20 to 30 is actually what we're finding is the best number. Because you get too many cooks in the kitchen and it's not the best formula. The other magic behind 30 and less is that if you're able to finance a place with 30 people or less, the legal structure, the federal, state, local laws, they're all a lot simpler if you have 30 shareholders or less. Once you get over that, you get into some federal, state, local, crowdsourced funding. You can do it, but it's long and tedious and it's more expensive. Right? So the big picture of what's saving courses is when 20 to 30 people get together, their primary motivation for owning the course or being a shareholder isn't to retire or make a bunch of money. The primary motivator is to get enough of a return year to year to be content, to get some golf privileges, and hopefully in 10, 15, 20 years, if it does ever end up getting developed, you get at least your money back and maybe a 2 or 3x return. Okay? So if any of you are sitting here in the room thinking, I'm here because I want to invest $1,000 and in 10 years I'm going to be a millionaire, this is not the right venue, right? So I've always liked to frame it that way, where the golf courses tend to be a labor of love, but they can be a solid, and they can be a how would we position it? On return rate, Mike, what do you just call it, conservative?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I hear numbers, you know, 4, 5, 6% annual return on an investment, you know, again, but it's if you can hang in there and keep a place profitable year to year, you're putting aside some money for future improvements, and you let development get another 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you might have a share that actually has some significant value. Okay. So I like to position it that way. So what I wanted to, we'll look at the numbers here, but there's 2 ways to do these group purchases. Actually, I'm going to say there's 3 ways. The easiest way that this could all happen is that if 3 or 4 or 5 of you in this room, or 2 or 3 or 4 of you in this room, have coffee tomorrow and say, guys, let's just buy this place. Let's me, you, and Joe, and Mary, let's just buy this place. If anything, we'll call Kevin. He'll come down. He'll give some consulting, some advice. That little group of 2, 3, 4, locals that care and love and have the money to do it. They bring in a team of experts or people that know how to make these clays profitable. We contract and we have services. You ready for this? Our beginner consulting package starts at $0. So that's what I did for Ellery last year. And she thought that by what we did last year probably helped her make an extra $50,000 to $60,000. Right? I have other courses that might pay us $200 a month to come in and do a monthly report, analysis. Some of my most expensive packages are like $400 a month. So it's not a cost prohibitive thing. Do any of you play fancy courses in Arizona run by TwinCitiesGolf management? Okay. You ever heard of Troon? Troon is a fancy company that runs. You know how much they charge courses to manage? $150,000 a year.
You probably are hitting that.
That's right. They are. No, there's one in northern Minnesota. There's one down in, they're all over. But now they help the course make more than 150. That's why they have 500 courses consult them. But that's more of a, what she pointed out was that's more of a high profile course. Small town courses do not need that. They just need some smaller guys that have similar knowledge. I have many friends that work for those companies. And so I go to the seminars, we steal the handbooks from Troon and Kemper and Billy Jasper. We try to take all of their ideas and bring them to the smaller courses in a much more affordable package. So the three ways that this could happen is, again, the coffee shop, 2, 3, 4 people get together, they talk to Vicki, make an offer, buy the course, great. That's probably the easiest, cleanest, simple way these things can happen. And then if they don't feel like they have expertise on how to make a golf course profitable and long-term sustainable, they can call us up, we'll come down, meet for a couple hours. I've got a 54-page workbook. By the time they get through that, they will have a blueprint on what you can do. A place like this, I've seen the numbers, you could make $100,000 a year more than you're making right now. Not doing too much different. Right. So that I know from having done analysis here. The second way to do it is to have 30 or less of you, and in other areas it's usually between 20 and 30, come up with the amount of money it takes to not just purchase the course, but you have to get enough money to have 6 months of operating capital so we can get through to next April, May, June before we can make enough each month to pay the bills. So if you look on your sheet, given the sale price of this, looking at the finances, how much the annual expenses are, the scenario that we're putting here, and I want you to jump to the bottom first where it says Plan A, B, and C, and then we'll look at some of these investment amounts and explain those. So in this situation, I think the ideal scene is you raise the money, whether it's a couple individuals, whether it's 20 or 30, or whether it's more. Plan A is you save the course, you raise the money, you raise the cash so that you don't have a debt service, because debt service is what kills golf courses and businesses. If you borrow $1 million and you're paying $10,000 a month it's really hard to make it go. So you need to find the individuals that are willing. Of the 1.5, you purchase the course, you would have around 5 to 6 months of operating cash. You bring in, you at least get some consulting on the operations management marketing side. And even at this course, at this price point, that it is very, very possible that even if this time next year, we could be sitting here saying, wow, we made enough, we might have even come out $100K ahead of our expenses. First year, we're going to be able to pay out a dividend on the shareholders. And now, first year, I wouldn't say to expect it, because you're always going to find something you're going to need to fix, a cooler. There's going to be something. But that's Plan A, is we get in here, we save the course. Dan, you did an analysis nationwide of what happens in a neighborhood when a golf course closes. What's a tip? What did the New York Times, what did they report happens when a course closes on local property values?
So Wall Street Journal did a survey. Wall Street Journal did a survey of property values that are on courses and by the courses. And it ranged the property value once the course was determined to be sold. The property value dropped at an average of 25%. So for a $400,000 home, your home just valued $100,000 less when it's sold. You know, of course, when it's sold, that's when you're going to lose that value. And also went up to 40 to 50% if it went into litigation, meaning that you purchased this home with some sort of contract that you're buying it on a course. Then you have to go into litigation and do some things there. It also was down to about 15% on homes that were a street away. So they weren't exactly on the course, but they had course view. And so that's the property value change and difference when it gets sold.
Okay. And we cross-referenced again, so about 25%.
25%, yeah.
And more so if it goes into disrepair. The course closes, weeds grow up, it's an eyesore, it takes 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years to develop. I mean, we sat in St. Paul and watched the property for the last 8 years basically grow the weeds. It decimated property values around the area. So Plan A, if you look at your sheet here, raise the purchase capital, what we've determined to be 1.5, purchase the course, have some operating cash, bring in an experienced group to be more of like a management group or a management consultants. It can go either way. And then put your head down, work, and make the course profitable the first year. If somebody invests in the course, becomes a shareholder, we get through 1, 2, 3 years, and we're literally just not able to make it. You know, Plan B for the shareholders could be, you know what? We have successfully held 9-hole facilities as long as they have a good practice facility and a decent clubhouse structure. You can make a 9-hole course profitable. If you don't have a practice facility, again, shut the door, close it, sell it off. If you have a decent clubhouse, a great practice facility, because then you can do junior programs and you can do family programs. So that's the difference between a facility. So if you're a shareholder, you put in money, we get 2 years down the road, we're like, oh, we're not able to cover our operating cost. Then call the real estate agent, say we'd like to sell off 9 holes. We hope to make enough money to cover operating capital and keep the place at least afloat under that type of arrangement. Right? Plan C, you get another couple years down the road, it's just not working out. Then, again, Plan C is you can always develop the full, 170 acres? You can develop, and then hopefully, if we're 4 or 5 years down the road, the property values of everything around here have gone up a little bit. Hopefully you sell off and you say, great news, I know you put in 25, you're getting 25 back, right? So if you're considering it as an investment and looking at it that way, you know, you've got basically just the foresight of seeing a backup plan. So the next thing I want to go to, and that leads into, okay, what would a potential structure look like? What I put at the top here, this is by no means final. This is an example of how you could structure it so that if somebody puts in $5 grand, 10 grand, 25, 50 grand, what can you do to make them feel like they at least get something tangible? And if they put in that amount of money, what's the potential annual dividend that they might expect to get? So if you look at the chart here, you know, you start at the top, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 25, 50,000. The way that we've always consulted and proposed these is that if somebody puts in money, they at least get that money back in golf. So again, if you live near the course and over the course of the next 10 years, you're going to spend $5,000 on greens fees, not just you, but your buddies. If you have 20 buddies, you could buy $10,000 worth of golf, get $10,000 worth of share, and every time you come and play with your foursome, you can say, hey Joe, give me 30 bucks. You can use one of my 750 passes, and over the course of the next couple of years, you can recoup a portion of what you paid. Because some of you may be sitting here thinking, geez, I'll never play 2,000 rounds of golf. Like this guy maybe does. So what we did, if you notice the different columns, we look at investment amount, what we wanted to do, what we believe helps people have the confidence, have a little more faith in investing in a course is we give them back at least what they put in future golf, guest fee privileges. If they are involved in the local community, say they're part of the Lions Club, and the Lions Club does a golf tournament out here. If you're a shareholder and you're actively involved with that outing, you can help the outing get 25, 30, 40% off. It's more money for the event, and what again does that do? That gets the local people vested, that are vested in the course, bringing the business here, instead of maybe taking it down the road or into lacrosse. So remember that magic number. You have 20 to 30 people that have 20 to 30 golfing friends, and that might influence 1 or 2 outings a year. We're talking 6-figure impact. And even a course like this, if you looked at the financials, most of these courses, they kind of stagger along, and some years they might lose 50,000. Some years, if there's a terrible year, they might lose 100,000. But you start to see is with some of these little changes, and with the more people thinking about the place, promoting the place, bringing their buddies, you can quickly recoup. And even if it is a bad year, say if we don't golf until May 1st, and then it snows October 1st, you still can survive the season. I mean, the last 5 years, have we had more of a variety between early start, late start?
Yep.
Yeah. And guys like Brooks that are doing it right, they're weathering the storm. I mean, have your revenues higher now than they were when you bought the course?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've increased revenue in 6 years. I'm doing about 200,000 more now than what my gross revenues were the first year. And they were losing money. When I purchased it, it was a failing business. And my wife didn't think it was a good gamble, but we've made it work. And I see increases. This year's a little tough because of the weather. I'm sure you had the same problem here. You can't recoup from a rain day because if Saturday's your golfing day, you can't necessarily pick it up on Wednesday and play. So for me, I see continual growth. So a lot of that's due to Kevin and the number of rounds that he drives in my direction. So.
Well, and last year, October was a complete washout. So if you're on par with last year revenue-wise, there's a real good chance he'll even finish up. I mean, what shocks, Mike does all of our number crunching with our 125 courses we're working with. I mean, we are literally having courses tell us right now that have been open 30 years, we are having a record year, like record year. Better than 2001 when Tiger was winning and everybody was in the heyday. We have courses because they've become smarter with their expenses, and we've figured out clever ways to optimize revenue every minute of the day that they're open. We have figured out a way that their course is making more money now and being more profitable than they were in 2001, when they didn't think that was even possible. So there's hope. I mean, none of us would be wasting our time even educating you guys about what the potential is if we didn't think that that was possible for this property. I came here and played, tell you, I've added up, I've played almost 300 different courses, and I cannot tell you when I came here in the spring how impressed I was. I told Ellery, I said, if I was going to build a course from scratch, this would almost be a template. Conservative clubhouse, great practice range, good putting green, open, get rid of as many trees as possible. They're just a headache, and people hate them. Reduce bunkers, have great greens, sandy base, open early, stay late, nice bar, but conservative, right? So that's what I told Ellery in the spring, and I said, we just got to get hundreds and thousands of more people here to experience this place, and you got to take great care of the locals, and that is a magic formula that's working for courses. All right, so let's look at the columns again. You got the investment amount. If you put in that amount of group financing, or if you put in that amount, well, here's what you get. Just right out of the gate, you get the golfing benefit. If you look in the notes down there, what you have to do to protect the course is you have to protect the times of the days and the times that the course can actually make money. Now, if I had to summarize that for you, the only time that most golf courses can collect a $40, $35, $50 green fee is weekend mornings between 7 a.m. and 11. Right? We got to call that out. If you offer a membership or you pre-sell rounds and you allow people to play for $10, $15, $20 a round, and they take up all of your Saturday morning times at 9 a.m., you're going to go out of business. There's only 220 golfable days in Minnesota, or even wherever we're at here in South, we call it Southeast Minnesota, or whatever we're at.
Southwest.
I took marketing, not geography, so help me out here. I know it's right near Winona. East.
A good site.
I don't like, I confess, I'm not a big cheese fan, so I don't. I love golf courses though, and Wisconsin is great golf courses.
We won't hold weekends.
So if you look at the notes in the bottom, if you're gonna prepay for, if somebody's gonna put in, say, $5,000 and they get 300 greens fees, yeah, we can give it to them for $16 a round, but you can't play on Saturday at 9 a.m. when we could sell that for $40. We're just, that cuts into too much of our potential revenue generating. So you just have to be understanding of that. Most golf courses in the metro, they are actually getting fewer and fewer full-time season pass members and going more to protecting their daily fee times that are prime because they make more money. Right? Here's a great example. There was a course that had 400 members that paid $1,500 a year. 400 people paying $1,500. Who's a math guy? That's 600 grand. So they brought in 600 grand. They think, oh, great. Well, up there in the cities, it costs $1 million to keep a course. In the metro, you got to have basically $1 million a year to expenses. Well, those 400 people took up all the Saturday, Sunday times, and they could only make $900,000 a year in revenue with that model. They got rid of their 400 season pass members. They went to prepaid rounds that had some time limitations. And in a matter of 3 years, we took them from bringing in $900,000 a year. Last year, they collected $1.9 million. And their shareholders are getting paid now. Now, are there a couple hundred angry people that used to play at 10 o'clock with their 40 buddies and take up all the prime times? Yeah. But you know what? The course was going to close if it didn't happen. So part of it is positioning, part of it is maybe breaking some traditions. But if it's positioned that, look, this is what we got to do to keep the course open, to have it thrive, to have money to buy a new irrigation system, and how many years are we going to need to put in new irrigation?
10 to 15.
Yeah. So we need $1 million in 10 years just to put in new sprinklers. So we better be stashing 100 grand a year for those type of expenses. Now to do that, we need to profit like 200K a year so that we could give shareholders some, have a little bit of a wiggle room, and everybody can be more comfortable. So if you look in the notes, that's why we put in there is when we suggest is if your people are going to prepay for rounds. And we do these same pricing structures that people just say they buy a season pass or something. There's got to be time restrictions that helps protect the prime time. Brooks, on a Saturday morning, and his course is you're still 40 minutes out. It's not like he's not a Minneapolis course. I live west of Minneapolis, 20 minutes, and I have to drive 40 minutes to get to his place. So he's an hour out. How much do you get for a green fee on a decent Saturday at 10 a.m.?
49 with cart.
Yeah, and he sells them out. He turns people off.
Yep.
So think of that. If you're sending out 4 golfers every 10 minutes, $50, it's $200 every 10 minutes, $1,200 an hour. That's how it is. So you don't have to be a metro area type course to make that kind of money. People will pay that on those prime times because their kid might have t-ball at 4 o'clock, so he needs to get out at a 9 o'clock tee time. Right? Now, I go to all the national conventions. The most common thing I hear even when I go to smaller towns like this is like, we're different here. We have the course down the road just did a $200 3-year membership. I know you did that. Well, all courses that do that make a lot of money the first year, and the third year they're crapping their pants because they're not making any money. People can't get a tee time, got 5-hour rounds, course conditions are terrible, and it's a terrible, terrible scenario, and they destroy the value of golf in that market. So luckily, we've actually helped courses transition, and we actually help courses compete against those type of facilities. So if you're thinking in your head, we're true here because courses like that are doing those type of programs, let me tell you something, it's actually your advantage, because if you can provide a good quality product with good customer service and a 4-hour round, they're going to pay $30 a round. And they might pay $35 a round with the cart. The key, and I do think golf courses like this should be $30, $35 a round, even with the cart. Here's the difference. You got to fill foursomes at $35 instead of having a twosome and a single go out every 10 minutes at $35. All right? Now in the metro, even in the metro, Mike with some of his financial analytics, we've proven with courses like Brooks. Like Brooks, you are better off sending out 4 golfers every 10 minutes at $30 each. You make $120 versus sending out 2 guys at $50 each. $100 versus $120, and they take advantage of his 6-pack special. They buy a dozen balls. They buy a hot dog.
Yep.
Right?
How do you do that? Encourage horses.
So price. helps. So if it's a little bit more affordable price. 2, we set up some online like Facebook groups where people can meet each other. You know, a lot of people have trouble rounding up a foursome. So what we do is we create opportunities where, hey, you can connect, like who wants to play Saturday at 1 o'clock? We have simple example is you have group Facebook pages. 2, you do enough marketing just to get busier. 3, you train your staff when somebody calls in, you call in, you say, I have a twosome. Hey, great, I got a twosome at right around 120, I'll pair you up. You create a culture where people know that they're gonna play as foursomes. You're better off having a foursome and a gap than a twosome, a foursome, a single, a foursome. So you train your staff and you create a digital tee sheet that gets people into basically booking foursomes. Right? Now I know there's antisocial people out there, right? And they want to play by themselves. You know the number one reason people want to play by themselves? Besides being embarrassed, they want to hit 6 balls. You see the guys out there on the par 3s? Whack. You know what? That just doesn't fly anymore. So you got to have the guts. So what Brooks did, he has a camera, a hole-in-one camera behind one of his par 3s, and as much as it rewards people when they get a hole-in-one, well, he can see if people are screwing around. Of course, we put in a hole-in-one camera, which is free to put in, by the way. And a guy came in, I got a hole-in-one. Oh, great, we got the video. It was his 4th shot. So we said, Jimmy, great job, you got a hole-in-one. Next time, you just play 1 ball. Like, dude, that really chews up the... So there's just so many ways, but the way you do that is you get busier, you block, maybe initially you go to 10-minute intervals instead of 8, so there's actually fewer tee times. You enable people to meet each other, and you just create a nice environment where people can play. Because you want a course where there's foursomes, because if you have a foursome, a twosome, and a single, the foursome's getting pushed, the twosome's not happy, the single's getting in a fight with the twosome, they come into the pro shop, oh my God, it's a 6-hour round. When did you tee off? Oh, that was 1 hour and 50 minutes ago.
Yep.
Nobody's happy. So our specialty with marketing is you just get the course busier. You know, you do the prepaid rounds. You have memberships, but you restrict the times. You have a rockin' fun league. So on Mondays you do events, Tuesday you do ladies league, Wednesday you do seniors, Thursday you do men's, Friday you do fun play Friday, you do 2-for-1 drinks. The formula's out there, and that's our biggest advantage with working with 125, 130 courses. Is I've spent the past 20 years. Last year I drove 29,000 miles, is what I reported, to courses doing meetings. I did 150 different course meetings. And all I ask is, what do you do that's working? Well, what do you do that's working? What do you do that's working? We pick and choose things that are working in different courses and customize it for different facilities. And what we're seeing consistently over the past 5 years is that the average course can increase their, like Brooks, their gross annual revenue 5 to 8% the first 3 years. So 3 years times 5% is a 15% growth. We see a 15 to 24% growth in gross revenues over 3 years. So if a course is making 500,000, what's another 20%? 100,000. So they might add 100,000. But and the really unique thing about a golf course is, Brooks, how much more does it cost to have 25,000 rounds a year versus 20,000 rounds? How much extra?
For me, it's very little. You got a little bit more time as far as daily maintenance of tee box maintenance, repairing ball marks and that type of thing, but I don't need a great deal more staff. It's really pretty minute from a maintenance side. And also, even in the clubhouse side, I don't need more people to check those people in. You just have to be a little more efficient in how you operate.
Yeah, so what I tell courses is that if you look at your P&L, if you look at your income and your profit at a course like this for the past 3, 4, 5 years, if you've run it like most 95% of courses run it, and you're even coming close to breaking even, you're in really good shape. There's actually hope for you. Because it's actually pretty easy to add 100, 150,000 a year in revenues and maybe increase 20,000, 25,000 in expenses. Right? So that's the optimisticness. So of the columns, you got the investment amount, the golfing benefits. The thing we clarify in the notes is that if somebody does a 25K to protect their losing 100,000 on their home, right? They put that in, they get 2,000 greens fees, they get 35% off of their accompanied guests. So another nice thing is it encourages the shareholders to bring their friends who can also save money. If they do an outing, they get the price off of there. And then once they use up those green fees, they still, as a shareholder, will still enjoy a nice discount on golf for as long as they're in the area and using it. So we wanted to provide, under this type of scenario, we wanted to provide, here's a guaranteed return. And if I was doing this, basically what I would do is I would bring my buddies and I would have my buddies Venmo me the dough on the first tee. Does anybody not know what Venmo is? Venmo is like the new way to pay. It's like a virtual checking account. Us that golf a lot and wager with our side buddies, we do that because most of us, our Venmo accounts are not seen by our wives. So it's our staff. Now my 20-year-old, my 18-year-old, that's all they use. So it's like the Uber for checking accounts if you are under the age of 25. So golfing benefits you get there. What we do, and I'll get into the shareholders, what we break down here is that if you put in this amount, this is the percent ownership. Now, you'll notice, and Mike helped me out with these numbers here, if we need to raise 1.5 million to purchase the course and have enough operating cash to get us to the point where it'll support itself. Right? Now you'll notice that percent ownership isn't based on 1.5 million worth of shares, it's based on 1.8. So remember, the reason I brought up that true is if again, I hope that tomorrow morning there's a small group gets together, calls Vicky, says they're buying the course, they take it from there and run with it. If that doesn't happen, and we still need to lead this charge of rounding people up, the reason I gave you that example of Troon Golf Management that charges $150,000 a year is to put a value on a team like us that comes in with 4 or 5 experienced individuals. Basically, that extra $300K is sweat equity that our management team of 5 would be willing to put in exchange for shares. So instead of us writing a check, what we're willing to do is we're willing to lead the charge, structure it, and in exchange we get enough shares to where we might earn a 5 or 6% annual return, and maybe in 10, 15, 20 years we have a share that's worth something. Right? So that's where, when you look at that percent ownership's not based on 1.5, it's based on 1.8. What we put on this is the value of having a team come in, organize this. We put that as a lifetime value of $300,000. Right? But I always put that into perspective because very few, especially small town courses, most of them don't put any value on actually contracting a team that has a proven track record. So that's where the money comes from. If you look at the next column, projected annual dividend, the reason I put on there years 2 and beyond is because there's some changes that would suggest it be made. You might need new coolers. You might need to rebuild the way the kitchen. There's going to be some money to put in. So the reason I put the projected annual dividend years 2 and beyond, and those numbers are based on 100K net profitability, which when we did the analysis on this course, that's a conservative number that based on dozens of other courses that we've done this type of consulting with, we think that this place can do a minimum of 100K net profitability. If that's the case, and you've put in that amount of money, yeah, that's what you could potentially expect to see as an annual dividend. Right? And I put in there years 2 and beyond because first year we'd probably want to invest a little more in marketing. We'd probably want to make just enough improvements that, 1, the shareholders would be really proud of the place, but 2, really set it up for long-term sustainability. There were some questions on all of the earlier stuff about, are the shares resellable? Absolutely. If you buy it and you want to give it to your kids or you move out of state, you want to get rid of it. I mean, obviously our goal would be to help this place be so profitable that you're making enough money on an annual return that you're like, yeah, this is a great stock. I mean, I have associates, they bought into courses 20 years ago, they put in $25K, and yeah, they get a $200 check, once a year or something like that, but they get that special rate on their golf, it's their home, it's a place they can be proud of. Now, they all have other jobs, they're not relying upon it for their retirement account. Again, that's not, take my advice, never invest in a golf course if you think that's your only retirement plan, just don't do it. Even owners, they can make a decent living, but it's a high stress if you're relying upon that as your only source. So shares are resellable. Do the shares increase in value with the property? Yeah. So we could set it up legally so that if you buy $10,000 or $25,000 worth of share, and in 20 years, if it's just too good of an offer not to sell the place out for $12 million, then your share is proportionally increased with the property value. The biggest column that always comes up, that's why I put it on here, is if I put in money now and in 2-3 years we need more money, are you going to do like what Hazeltine does and say, here's a bill for $6,000? They call that an assessment. I don't think that's a workable model for average people. Right? So that's why when we talk about liable for, a lot of people ask, if I put in the money now, am I going to be liable for another $10,000 in a couple of years? That's why we set up the Plan B and the Plan C, that if it gets to that point where it's just not a solvent business, we try to make a real estate ploy where, again, we go to the 9-hole option first, get enough money in to keep it sustainable, and then give another X number of years. If that doesn't work, we hopefully have land that's appreciated enough to where we might hope and pray that we get our money back that we put in. And over, if that's a 10-year process, we've got the golf for 10 years. So is this helping kind of more big picture of how these type of the structures work? Okay, so to finish up, and then I'll entertain questions. So again, the ideal scene is either a couple of you tomorrow or before October 1st, because we've been given a deadline just because of a lot of different circumstances. But ideal option A, a couple of you decide, buy the course. If you feel like we can be of help, call us up. We'll consult. We'll help you out. Right? So that's ideal scene A. B, if that doesn't happen, then what we do is, and on your form at the bottom, it's your name, your contact information, and if you're interested in possibly being a part of it, you fill that out before we go. But that's really, if we're given our time frame, those are really the two most viable options. A couple local people, or we do get, and again, we would be looking so that on a time frame is 30 people or less, come up with enough money that we can raise the 1.5, purchase the course, finish the fall strong. It's not too late. Online, we have close to 200 verbal supporters. So again, if there's 7,500 in the room, there's a lot of people. I have people as far south as Illinois that play here a couple times a year because their buddies live close. They drive up. They're like, yeah, I'll throw in. Now, if we do the scenario where 30 people or less basically become the shareholders, what we will offer to people that can't put in enough to be part of that 30 group, the people that might only have $1,000 or $5,000, they will be able to buy a very attractive golf package and some benefits to help us with income inputs, to help us get through next year. Right? We could do a membership drive, we could do prepaid rounds, we could do enough of a marketing campaign. There's a lot of people that were members at Drugan's the last 3 years that are looking for a different place to play next year. I know that. I've talked to enough people that filled out the form and around town. These guys were buzzing around downtown lacrosse, spying on courses and stuff too. So we got a sense. Yeah, I tell you what, I came here I think early April. I've thought about this place almost every day since. Again, it's a very special place. You guys should be proud. If you were part of building it and supporting it early, you really should be proud of this place. So ideally, we get 30 people or less together. We raise the money. We purchase the course. We finish the fall strong. We pre-sell 2020 memberships, and we crush next year. We crush 2020. We make enough money to get the place back on its feet, have enough hopefully left at the end of the year to host a shareholder party and give everybody, even if it's a small check. Again, that's the ideal scene. And we definitely think it's possible with our team. Okay. Did you have any final thoughts or questions, Mike? Final thoughts?
No, I really want to thank everybody for their time. And again, what you have here is pretty spectacular. Been around golf a long time, and it's a community this size to have this nice a facility is pretty outstanding.
Questions? Anything? Okay. So at the bottom of the sheet, yeah, go ahead.
I live on the course here.
Yeah.
Okay, when we bought this property, there's covenants, and there's a whole list of things said, okay, you sell this off, what happens to all those? And my understanding, they stayed with the thing, and I talked to the owners, prior owners. And this brings up a real question, you talk about groups coming in. Who is going to be the group at that time that enforces the covenants, keeps the thing up? Because it said when all the lots are sold, then it turns over to the owners. Every owner has a share or part of it. Would that be still in force yet, or is somebody going to throw that out?
So I'm not an attorney. Let me give you an example of a similar situation. How many of you know where the Jewel Golf Course is in Lake City? Okay, I know the owner. I know the guy who bought it. So when they heard about the course, he had never been to the course before. It was a good deal. He bought it. Him and his dad are billionaires. They were going to buy the course, and they were going to try it for a couple years. If not, they were going to sell it off. After they bought it, they found out that there was covenants, and so now there are some legal terms that require it to remain part of it. So I don't know the answer to that question at this point. From a legal standpoint, again, that's a great question, and if you were considering investing in it, I think we would want to find that out before anybody would make a decision. I don't know that if a property changes hands, are all of the covenants that were agreed upon under owner number one, are they transferred over to owner number two? I don't know the answer to that. So that's something it's a great question. Dan, will you write that down? Dan's kind of our legal questions guy. But great question. We'll find out the answer. And before any of this would go to final commitment, we would have that answer for you. Yeah. I mean, I hope that what you got out of this meeting is that the team that I put together, at least, obviously our 100% confidence and 100% commitment would be this is maintained as an 18-hole facility for generations. So that's obviously the plan A. I mean, the challenge for homeowners is no matter what you sign, no matter what covenant, if the course closes, you're screwed. So it's I don't know a more diplomatic way of saying that. I'm just saying that, but all of that obviously would have to be set up in the legal structure. Okay. Is that an okay answer for now?
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we look at the things, and since the original owners have passed on, it's kind of, everybody buys a lot and does all kinds of things like that. You look at the covenants there, and okay, you keep up your property. Who is, we talked about it, okay, somebody buys a lot and decides it isn't going to fit into what it's stated in there. They want to put up something and they have all the other stuff, and then they just try and test you to say, oh, I bought it, I can do whatever I want. And really, I've known people who have not wanted to buy a lot out here because they don't like covenants.
Right.
Well, you know that when you buy in, whether you buy here or whether you buy somewhere else, there's restrictions on a lot of it.
Yeah. So here, last Thursday I was in the St. Paul courthouse because the Ramsey County owns a golf course called Ponds at Battle Creek. It was built 18 years ago. People bought around it with a covenant that it was going to stay a golf course. Well, now the city, the Ramsey County wants to turn it into low-income housing. And if you can pay attorneys enough, you can almost get anything done.
Which could happen here, so I
Right.
mean, you're worried about the covenants, it's a golf course, but we could have houses, rentals here. So I guess if I lose, I can't park a camper in my yard, it might be worth it to me.
Yeah, that's,
I mean,
it's all great
I mean,
questions.
you gotta look at all that.
Is there an HOA
No.
here? Okay.
The only fees here are the well fees that
Okay.
my wife takes care of, the 6 that we live in, as for the fees. And the other ones are, I think, by the golf course, I don't know who's doing those.
Yeah.
Still. That's,
Yeah, in other communities, the way these things typically work the best is that 20 to 30 homeowners band together, become shareholders, and personally help contribute enough to where it maintains.
Right.
I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. All right, any other questions? Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about 30 or less owners.
Yep.
That means they're gonna have $50,000 for each one of them.
Yep.
So basically, any number under that is
Well-
not feasible.
Or one person could have 100, one person could have 150. You know, again, you never know what comes out of the woodwork when you're dealing with situations like this. But yeah, that is the reality, that if you're looking at an average, that's what would be needed. So that's why I had Dan do the research, that if you have a $400,000 home and if things close, you know, are you willing to potentially take a 100K hit on property value, or would you rather put in 50K to hopefully preserve it and have something about it? Yeah, again,
Yeah, I'll talk about covenants just for a second. So in regards to the 25% base value loss on your home or value of your home, it's when litigation comes involved, is when the covenant, basically your litigation is on covenants for most of the time. And all of a sudden, you're putting more money into litigation just to keep your camper in your place or what have you. And that really is a cost. So your value of your home, I suppose, decreases because you're putting $25,000 into litigation that you never would have had you not had the litigation. So that's where covenants are. They go into litigation all the time, and that's when they're sold to somebody else. Basically, it's, you know, they're selling the property, they're not selling the covenant anymore, and that's where litigation comes in.
When you're purchasing the golf course, how many residential lots are still available on the golf course that's owned by the owner? Do they go with it or not?
Where is Ricky?
It's Katie, and
Okay.
Katie, as far as I know, and I think Katie might,
Yeah, help us out.
I think it does. I think it's all lock, stock, and barrel.
But how many are
Everything
there?
is, every,
I believe originally it was, and I don't know if that's changed,
okay.
but
Is there
I
a
don't know
list
that.
agent that has that information?
Katie, when she-
Potentially here.
I think she went to the bathroom.
Okay.
Katie will be here.
She's coming out right now.
Hey, everybody. We have a question
I
for
heard
you.
my name.
We have a question for you.
Okay.
What was the question?
The question was, how many residential lots are on the property? Are they part of the purchase?
So right now I have the list price is at 1.3 million and it does not include any residential lots. However, if we get a decent offer in, we will include the 5 remaining residential lots. The 5 remaining lots are where the speed bump is. There is lot 1 that resides just east of number 1 tee box, Al is saying, but just beyond the speed bump. And then we do have 4 of them, 24 through 27, right by the substation on the far side of the golf course. So, but they are not included in the 1.3, but again, we would like to sell it as a whole, really. And anybody who purchases, we'd like to have those lots as well. We're retaining those rights.
Before I have you turn into information sheet, any other questions for Katie?
Is it too early in the wrong space to just give us a little bit of highlight on what the current expense of the course is and what this year's profits were? Is it too early for that? Is that something that we reach out directly to you for? Is there?
So